Hey everyone, my name is Garrett and I am the founder of Ambition in Motion, and I'm so excited, I'm so grateful to have you here for our first workshop. I'm so glad that you're here, and I'm so glad that you've decided to invest in yourself to build a mentoring relationship with someone from your organization so then you can help amplify your own career prospects and opportunities to really help take your career to the next level. I'm really excited for you and what you're going to accomplish over these next 4 months. So during this video, I just wanted to give you an overview of what to expect for the program and how to prep for this upcoming workshop. Now, this workshop's title is called Transitioning into a Managerial Role. So maybe you're in your career and maybe you're about to start entering into a managerial role, or maybe you've been a manager for a while, or maybe you're not a manager quite yet, but you will be. This workshop will be extremely insightful for you. You are going to learn a ton about management and how to properly manage somebody and how to not properly manage somebody. If you have any questions throughout this workshop, please post them in the comments section. So I wanted to give you first an idea of the timeline of the program. Tonight is the first workshop. So pumped about it. All of our workshops are, by the way, going to start at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 p.m. Pacific, and any time in between if you're somewhere in between in the United States. Our goal is that you have at least 3 meetings with your mentor, but ideally you meet more. Ideally, you meet more often than that. If you think to yourself, oh, I should wait, or I should wait for this to happen, or I should wait for that to happen, don't. Get on it right away. Build that relationship. I strongly encourage that, because the longer you wait, the more time you're putting off from building a great mentor relationship, and the more time you're putting off from actually really seeing the results and being able to apply what we're teaching in these workshops into your life. So have multiple areas of support. Take advantage of your mentor. Start building that relationship. Now, those 4 workshops are the first one's on transitioning to a managerial role. The second one is determining when is the right time to pursue additional education, or if it's the right time to pursue additional education. The third workshop is determining when is the right time to switch jobs. And then the final workshop is on how to handle conflict in the workplace. So the really relevant topics, and I think that you're going to really enjoy these workshops and the guest speakers that we brought in for you to learn from during these workshops. We will send you a post-program assessment to get your feedback. So this workshop is going to be roughly an hour long, and we're going to cover a lot of topics on how to transition into a managerial role. And so for you, my focus is on how can you go about making the most out of this. Really, the best way to go about making the most out of these workshops is to interact with us. When I ask a question to you, the audience viewing this, answer it, because here's the thing. I would rather you post your questions in the comment section, because if you got this question, I guarantee you somebody else in the audience does as well. So if we were to answer questions on an individual private basis, we're not really answering everybody's questions. But if you post your questions in the comment section, we can share this with everybody so then they can get their answers just like you got your answer. This program doesn't guarantee you a promotion or a new job. Really, the key is this program's for professionals who want to take their career to the next level. Like, we don't hand things out on a silver platter. Now, by the way, do these types of opportunities happen for the professionals that use this program? Absolutely. But you got to be open to it. You got to be willing to put your time in to go ahead and make the most out of this experience. If you're thinking to yourself, oh, I'm going to come in negatively or skeptically, you're going to get negative and skeptical results. I mean, it's the law of attraction. If you come in with a negative mindset, you're going to manifest a negative mindset. If you come in with a positive mindset, you're going to manifest a positive mindset. It's all about how you view this system, this workshop, this opportunity. So come in with the right idea, with the right mindset, and you can make the most out of this experience. I promise that. So I just want to set the expectation properly. This is a program that does not hand out things on a silver platter. If you work for them, you can absolutely take your career to the next level, but it's about applying them. It's about actively meeting with your mentor. It's about actively networking and actually doing what you can to make the most out of this experience. Ask questions, interact, take advantage of everything we've got for you, and you will get the opportunities you desire. I mean, that's what this program's here for. If you think like, oh, I'm going to do the bare bones minimum, I'm just going to kind of have just 3 phone calls, and we'll keep them at the minimum length of time, and I'm just going to attend the workshop, not take any notes, not really make any comments, not really talk to anybody about what I'm learning, you're gonna get those types of outcomes. That's pretty much it. So I really want to encourage you to make the most out of this program. Take advantage of it. Ask questions, participate, and interact. Treat this program as fuel. Treat this program as fuel to help you get to where you want to be. If you're already burning and going strong, going hard, this program can help you get into the next level and accelerate. If you're barely burning a fire, barely burning an ember, and you really want to rekindle that and get yourself up, take advantage of it. Jump in. But if you think to yourself, you know what, I'm barely burning this ember, I'm not really trying to burn this ember, really there's nothing there, the field can only do so much for you. So the point I'm making is come in with an open mind and a willingness to work hard, and you can achieve what you want. I mean, have professionals use this program to gain a managerial role or negotiate a raise or build deep bonds with their colleagues or expand their networks? Absolutely. But did those outcomes come handed on a silver platter? No, they didn't. It's about how you can apply what you're learning in this workshop to make the most out of this experience. So I want to share with you a little bit about my background, because I think that helps give some context as to who I am, what we're teaching, what we've learned, and why this information is relevant. So for me, I personally needed mentors in my life. And this might sound crazy, but from age 15 to age 19, I was a drug dealer. At the end of my freshman year at Indiana University, I got arrested in an undercover operation by the Indiana University Police Department, and I got 5 felony distribution charges. I was expelled from school, and I had no idea really what I was going to do with my life. It hit my life like a brick wall. I mean, up to that point in time in life, I thought success was you go to school, you get good grades, you get a job, and then you just kind of find yourself, like as if it's puberty. It just comes and hits you. And nobody that I had ever known that I ever thought was successful ever was a drug dealer. So I either had to accept being a failure or redefine my definition of success. So I chose the latter. And it was a great decision for me. Kind of like back to the whole law of attraction thing. I opened my mind to what positively could happen from this situation as opposed to negatively. So I enrolled in a program in St. George, Utah after I got in trouble. And they exposed me to the power of mentorship, both on a personal level and a professional level. On a personal level, they were huge. I mean, they helped me come to grips with how I'd affected my family, my friends, my university, my country. I really didn't think that what I had done really would impact anybody or that anybody would care. And that was so wrong. And I really don't ever want to discount the power of personal mentors, because personal mentors can really help you make some serious just strides and have some serious growth in your life, because ultimately those personal mentors can help see you for you. And don't get me wrong, the professional mentors are amazing as well. And by the way, we can mix those two. They can both be personal and professional mentors. But I really want to stress the importance of being vulnerable in a mentoring relationship, just like I've been vulnerable with you right now sharing my story, because I know that when you're vulnerable, you're much more likely to be attractive in that relationship. You're much more likely to build trust. I mean, shoot, you can't even build trust without vulnerability. You have to have vulnerability. So when it comes to building a mentor relationship, I hope me sharing my story with you has helped inspire you to be vulnerable with your mentor and in your mentoring relationship. And just to kind of finish out my story in terms of how I actually got here from being a drug dealer who moved to St. George, Utah. About a month after living in Utah, I flew back to Chicago for the weekend to let my family know my life's getting on track. On that flight, I'm sitting next to a guy. I took a keen interest in who he is. I asked him questions. I took down notes, shared with him a little bit about me, but really I was focused on who he was and asking him questions and really learning about what he had to say, because people love to talk about themselves. I was learning that through a book I was reading called Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. And by the time we landed, he said, "Oh, by the way, I'm the director of ground equipment for SkyWest Airlines." And he offered me an internship doing financial analysis on the spot. Didn't care about my background. He decided to take me under his wing and give me an opportunity, and that was so crucial. That was amazing. He didn't care that I might be going to prison sometime in the future. He didn't care really what my future looked like. He cared about me, and he wanted to give me a chance, and that was so crucial. It helped me really take some serious strides in my life and my career. About a year after living in Utah, I actually got very lucky. While I was in Utah, I started a nonprofit to help young men and women who had made poor choices with drugs and alcohol and help them get mentors too, just like I had gotten mentored by that guy at SkyWest Airlines. And the court system saw that. They ended up dropping my felonies to a misdemeanor conviction. Indiana University had decided to re-enroll me, and I started Ambition in Motion with the idea of how can I help people get connected with their careers. I mean, ultimately for me, my vision is a world where the vast majority of people, not a couple people, but the vast majority of people are excited to go to work. When they're there, their expectations meet reality, and when they come home, they feel fulfilled. I'm here to try to help you achieve that. That's all I do, is to help serve you to get you to where you want to be in your career. Because the more satisfied you are with your career, the better of a society we live in, and the more happy society is, the better everybody's lives are. I don't know. That's just my way of trying to make an impact on the world. And, you know, if you're going through this right now as a professional and you're thinking to yourself, like, what is my impact on the world? You know, it could be anything. But I think if you're consciously aware of that and think to yourself, I want to make an impact on the world, that's a great starting point. So the point is, be vulnerable, and think about your impact, especially as it pertains to your story. Now, I want to talk about 3 keys to success for this program. The 3 keys to success for this program are honing your strategy, your story, and your state. Now, I said those in reverse order of importance. Your state is number 1. Physically, what is your state? Like your physiological state. Are you like amped up? Are you ready? Are you good to go? Are you in such a good mood that you're going to take on the world? Or are you stressed out, hunched over your computer, got bad posture, not feeling great? I mean, your first impression is everything. And when you're going into your mentor meeting, or a meeting with anybody for that matter, and you're coming in with some bad body language, I can promise you, you are not going to have a good first impression, and that will kill that relationship. It is very difficult to overcome a bad first impression. So, fortunately, there are some things that you can do to help you get yourself into a positive state. And they take like 30 seconds because your emotions drive your emotions. Now, you might have had the worst day in the world, and you might be thinking to yourself like, oh man, I gotta meet with my mentor right now. I don't know how I can do this. Here's something you can do to get yourself into a positive state. There's a lot of things you can do. You can do a power pose. You can fake smile for 30 seconds. You could fake laugh for 30 seconds. But what I like to do is I like to shake it out, and I like to dance it out, and I like to scream at the top of my lungs. So what I want you to do right now while you're watching this video, and I know it might sound crazy, you might be in your house, you might be in your office, you might be at work, I don't really care. Stand up, shake it out, shimmy it loose. Stand out. I want you to scream at the top of your lungs. Just go, yeah, just let it loose, let it out, let it go. And the reason why I'm telling you to do this is because you are releasing endorphins to your brain, getting blood flowing to your brain. What this does is it gets you into a positive mood. It takes you from wherever you're at and puts you at a 10. It gets you ready to go. And your physical body, your physiology, your body is saying, thank you. I'm ready for this. I'm ready to take on the world. Your state is crucial. So when it comes to a mentor meeting, get your state right. You're going to give a positive first impression if you get your state right. If you're screaming at work, good for you. Amazing. I'm proud of you. That's awesome. You know, people might think of you and look at you like a weirdo, but that's okay because this is not a coolness contest. This is about you making strides in your career and getting a positive first impression with your mentor and with anybody that you want to meet. Now, the second key is your story. Now, what's a story that you tell yourself? Do you tell yourself a story for why you won't be successful or for why you will be successful? I mean, your story could be, oh, well, you know, I'm an introvert, so I couldn't possibly be good at networking or putting myself out there or trying to get a raise or try to be a manager because, you know, I'm just an introvert. Or maybe you think to yourself, like, I'm an extrovert. I'm crazy around people. I can't even handle it. I'm a word vomiter. I just can't even contain myself around other people. I couldn't possibly be good at networking or in a managerial position. If you tell yourself a story for why you will not be successful, you will not be successful. But if you tell yourself a story for why you can be successful, you can manifest that outcome. If you tell yourself a story, if you literally play in your mind how a situation could go the most positive way you could possibly go, you will get yourself to where you want to be. So I want to ask you right now, and I would love if you could post in the comment section, what is a story that you tell yourself for why you will be successful? Where do you want to go? What do you want to achieve? How are you going to do that? Lay out your story of where you're going. It could be the next 3 months. It could be the next year. I don't really care. But put it out there for how you're going to be successful. Share it with the world. Share it with your community here because what that does is it empowers other people to be vulnerable and share their story as well. I'd love if you could share your story of where you want to go in the comment section. Now, the last key is your strategy. So what is the strategy that you're going to do to help you get to where you want to be? Now, this workshop is all about how to transition into a managerial role. So the strategy is going to be all about how can you go about becoming a better manager. Now, take the skills that we're teaching in this workshop with our guest speaker. Take these skills and apply them. One of the things that I love to do when it comes to strategy is to set up a routine. So what is something that you can do on a regular basis to help you reinforce this skill that you're learning in this workshop? Because if you're just here in this workshop and you're just watching this video and maybe you're taking notes, like that might stick. But if you actually teach it to somebody else, that is definitely going to stick. Exponentially, you are much more likely to remember the information that you're taught if you teach it to somebody else. So what I want you to do when it comes to strategies, I want you to take what you're learning during this workshop and I want you to apply it and teach it to somebody else. This could be a friend, it could be a stranger. I don't really care. But teach something that you learned that you thought was impactful and powerful to you. I love if you could do that, because if you can, you're going to reinforce this information, and this program, this workshop, this whole experience is going to be so much more powerful to you because you are reinforcing what you are learning. So the way that you can practice, find an accountability partner, teach them the skills that you are learning, something that you learn, and it could be anything. Like whatever nugget of wisdom that you heard from me or from our guest, teach that to somebody else. That will help you reinforce it. Thank you all for being here. I'm really excited for you to embark on your mentor relationship. And in this mentor program, I'm really excited to get started with our guest speaker.
Hey everybody, I'm so excited to dive into our topic for today, how to transition into management, how to transition into leadership, what we can do to set ourselves apart. Many of you might be watching this and thinking to yourself, okay, I'm an individual contributor right now. My goal is to get into a management position, maybe a team lead. Maybe you're already in a lead position. Maybe you're a director, supervisor, maybe vice president. Maybe you're the CEO of your own company. I don't know where you are in your career path and career trajectory, but either way, transitioning into further leadership positions and management roles is critical to being successful and achieving the success outcomes that we want to see within our careers. Fortunately, we've got a great guest with us here this evening. We've got Flo Labrado. Flo, thanks for being here.
Happy to. Glad to be here.
So, Flo, if you could share with us your story. How did you get to this position today? I mean, first, maybe tell us where you're at right now. What's your position? What do you do? And then I'd love to get your genesis story of like when you were in college to the jobs that you had out of college and how you worked within your organization to get to where you're at today.
For sure. So I took an interesting path. I didn't necessarily have a very firm and set career plan, milestones I expected to hit at certain points. I did have more of a flexible approach to where I wanted to be, so that I had some structure to my plan, but also some flexibility so that I could remain open to opportunities and changes that were happening. And so I've had wonderful over 20 years working at T-Mobile in various different roles, beginning as individual contributor, really in customer service as a job while I went to college. And then from there realized that I wanted to stay with the company and continue to grow. And so while I worked thinking that it was just a job while in college, I first earned a degree in psychology and realized that I didn't necessarily want to move into clinical psychology like I thought I wanted to, but I wanted to stay involved in technology and systems analysis and experience and product management, while also continuing to explore how does a healthy workplace develop? How does that happen, right? And
Okay,
so
I don't mean to interject, but I want to ask a couple of questions about that.
yeah,
So, you're pursuing this degree in psychology. When you initially pursued the degree into psychology, what was like your initial like goal for did you think you might want to go like clinical route, or
yes.
what were you thinking in terms of psychology?
Oh, I was so confident that I would go straight from undergrad into a clinical psychology PhD program. And my goal was to be a clinical psychologist and possibly also teach on the side. I was so confident that that's what I wanted to do.
So I want to ask another question on that topic because I think there's a lot of students out there watching this and they're thinking to themselves, maybe similar things. We're like, I've got my path set. It's a very linear line. I go from here to there to there to there. Boom, my whole next 50 years is perfectly laid out for me. And then all of a sudden, it's like wrinkle happens. I'm going to a different direction. Identity crisis. Oh my gosh, I told my friends, my family, I would do this thing. And now I'm not doing it anymore. How did you overcome that of the because I think, by the way, I think the ultimate notion and the ultimate lesson learned is that your family doesn't care. They just love you and support you and they want to see you
Right.
thrive and succeed. If it's not the path you told them it was going to be, that's okay. They're not freaking out about that. But we often in our minds create loops and hurdles for us because we think to ourselves, like, oh my gosh, how do I go tail between my legs to my family to tell them I'm not going to be a clinical psychologist and go do this PhD program anymore? How was that for you?
And it was tough in some ways but easy in others. It was hard because I do from a family of academics and technologists, so making this change would be a surprise. However, the way that things were changing in the world around me at that moment made it obvious that I needed to pursue a different path. One, I realized that I was, as much as I enjoy understanding people and behavioral and cognitive psychology, I wasn't as much interested in practicing as a clinician. But additionally, around that same time, amazing things were happening in the world, right? The internet became a part of how we live. Companies started to shift their approaches from brick and mortar to digital, and I wanted to be a part of that. And I already had the opportunity to be a part of different mergers with the company and get really excited about that. And through that, just taking advantage of opportunities, different projects that launched, different opportunities where people were just looking for talent, for people who were interested in learning and maybe didn't have all the skills, but were willing to try something different. And so all of those things galvanized around the same time. It made it very clear and gave me a lot of courage to change my path. So I continued to finish my degree in psychology, right? And I thought, maybe I move into industrial psychology or something else, but it didn't feel quite right. In the meantime, I'd already moved up into a technology role and moved into a senior analyst role. And I thought, you know what, let me go chase this. My family was super supportive. My husband was very supportive through all of these changes. But it's important to, while we may have like a path, to understand that one, it's not always linear. And two, that we need to remain open to opportunities and how technology is changing our world, because if not, we might miss an opportunity that is even more exciting than what we originally planned to pursue. And
Cool. All
so,
right. One other question, because I think it's a cliffhanger. What is your current title right now with T-Mobile?
oh, yeah. So my current title, I am a senior manager of frontline systems experience, and my team has a super cool job of working at the intersection of people and technology. It's a little bit of systems analysis, a little bit of product management, and a little bit of business management. And so we try to understand what are the trends, what are customers asking for, right? And what our customers need, what frontline agents need, how customer experiences are shifting from in-person to digital, and then work with our technical partners to come up with solutions that reduce effort, improve the customer experience, continue to drive our revenue at a lesser cost.
That's so cool. So that's really, and it's nice because I mean, if the students you're watching this, you can see kind of the ethos and the story of like how this transpired of like, hey, I could see this, we're going from brick and mortar to online to these new opportunities. And it's cool that's what you're doing right now. How do you go from like being in customer service, customer success at T-Mobile to being a senior manager like where you're at today? How does that happen within the workplace? I think there's a lot of preconceived notions, and I think there is some studies and evidence that shows that when people switch jobs, they're much more likely to move up the ladder faster. But you didn't do that. You stayed in the organization, which means that there was something you did that justified your talent, that showcased that you could move up the organizational ladder quickly within the organization. I guess what I'm trying to say is I think sometimes companies can become complacent with their people and decide not to move people up because they're like, oh, we know Flo, she does great in her role. She'll be good for 5 to 10, maybe 15 years. Just keep her there. She's doing great. We'll give her 5 to 10% bonus every year. And, that hopefully will sustain her. And it's like, no, people have goals for growth and aspirations. And if we're a person at a company where we've been there for a while, we're like, okay, I want to get to this next level. How the heck do I get there? How the heck did you get to where you're at?
Oh my gosh. I think this goes back to three things. One, I think, is having just a self-awareness and understanding of what the person wants. I needed to understand, what am I good at? What am I good at? What are my skills, right? Also, to understand, what are my values? What are the things that are most important to me as a person? And also, what do I want to get out of my place of work? And I think having a good understanding of those things as a foundation almost serves as like a compass for future decisions. I think it's also really important to not wait for someone to notice my work, not wait for someone to notice or someone to reach out and say, hey, you're doing a great job. Are you interested in something? No, I think it's important for every person to take ownership of their own career development, what their interests are, what their ambitions or aspirations are, to own that, to communicate that with not only their leadership, but with other people who can serve as mentors, who can serve as advocates for the person. So that, like for me, that was really important. I made it really clear that what my strengths were, what I wanted, and I connected with my leadership. I connected with other leaders and other people who, from whom I could learn. For example, like there was, I was lacking expertise in a specific platform, and I was very intentional to connect with someone, with an analyst who had that expertise, so I could learn from them. I also needed to develop some extra expertise in working with vendors, not only within the United States, but also in different parts of the world. And so I connected with a leader who helped me to learn about how to do that, about how to juggle relationships, how to have more of a global mindset, and just continuing to take ownership for my career development. Instead of leaving it in the hands of someone else, helped me to better prepare myself for the opportunities that did emerge. That was super powerful, and I'm grateful. And really, what all of that amounts to really is a growth mindset, continuing to learn and seek opportunities to grow, make mistakes, learn from those mistakes, and use those apparent failures into skill development opportunities.
How many direct reports do you have?
Right now, I have 8. And
Okay.
I have had a broad range of direct reports, combination of employees and contractors. And it has, I've had the privilege of leading teams across the company, where oftentimes I don't see people in person for sometimes for years at a time. Through that, I've also been able to expand my span of control in a sense, because I also get to mentor and coach and develop people that are not necessarily in my direct line.
So I want to talk about that because you brought up a really great point before, which was you need to take control of your own development of your career. You got 8 direct reports. You know your 8 direct reports pretty well, but at the end of the day, if you don't advocate for yourself as a leader, you're not a mind reader. You're not there to say, because I think on the flip side, one thing I hear often from employees that are trying to get promoted, one thing I've seen before happen is, a person is working at a job and they say, "Oh, I'm going to go invest and get myself an MBA and get that, that piece of paper that shows that I'm an MBA and then I'm really qualified and that sort of stuff." And they don't tell anybody. And then one day they get that MBA, they come into their boss and they're like, "Ta-da, here's my MBA. Where's my promotion? I'm ready to roll." And they're like, "What did that come from?" I mean, that's cool. I mean, congratulations. Like, well, I love that you're pursuing your MBA, or that the fact that you've gotten your MBA, that's amazing. But we never even, I had no idea. We didn't even discuss a path for you. It's not like by osmosis, like your skills and abilities have magically changed. I mean, don't get me wrong, you got an MBA, which definitely helps showcase that you've added to your arsenal of skills and abilities. But how do you go about effectively communicating maybe ahead of that? I just got my MBA, where's my promotion? How do you go about not getting frustrated and perturbed that your boss hasn't decided to give you the green light to go ahead and pursue that team lead role? How do you go about like proactively having that conversation without sounding braggadocious, without sounding without sounding like braggadocious or overly eager? Does that make sense?
It does, but I actually would argue that it is okay to brag and to be very eager. I think that it is very okay, especially in organizations in which, I mean, hopefully everyone has the opportunity to work in an organization that invests in talent management for the entire workforce, right? But that may not always be the case, right? So I think it is really important, especially when working in an organization in which talent management may not feel like a priority, to be an advocate and to speak up and to state forth what a development plan is, and that part of that plan is pursuing this additional degree, whether it's an undergraduate or an advanced degree. I think that's super important. And I think the way that I think it's important to also approach, not necessarily first, but make sure to include your immediate leader, and possibly also their skip level, right? To say, "Hey, look, this is the kind of role that I'm pursuing, and this is what I want to do. These are the kinds of opportunities that I want. to pursue. To help me get ready for that, here's what I'm doing. I am pursuing this degree or pursuing this advanced degree or pursuing this certification or whatever it may be, and ask them for support and also invite them to be part of that journey with their thoughts and feedback. And I think it's also really helpful to ask for work that supports that academic journey, so that if we're learning a specific skill or area or competency in an academic setting, to then also ask for additional responsibilities or work in the workplace to immediately put that to practice. And that serves two purposes. One, it helps you to reinforce what you're learning. It helped me immensely to learn something and immediately apply it at work. It helped it to become not just something that I learned in school and I put my notes away, but something that becomes part of my skills that I own and perform. The second benefit to that is that having work that aligns with what you're learning in school helps leadership to see that you're investing in yourself, not just for the piece of paper, but to make meaningful contributions. So that also invites them to become an advocate for you. I am so grateful. There were specific pieces of my graduate school program that I was able to apply immediately in an impactful way. And as a result, my leadership, who was very supportive of my academic journey, not only supported me in that and helped me to create the bandwidth so that I could work on projects that supported what I was learning in school, but also they would tell other executive leaders about the skills that I was developing. And as a result, they would reach out to me asking for support or for me to work with their teams. So not only did it benefit my career, my development, right, and my academic development as well, but also it expanded my network because others got to learn about the skills that I was developing and that I can employ to support their team as well.
That's awesome. That's super cool. Well, I think you highlight a couple of really big things there, Flo. One, and I think I chatted about this in the earlier part of this workshop with the intro. And maybe if it wasn't the earlier part, I chat about it in a different intro video for a workshop. But it's talking about Dr. Robert Cialdini's book. He's got a book called Persuasion. One of the things he talks about is what is focal is causal, meaning what people see is what they perceive. And so when you say, hey, it's okay to brag about yourself, that's an exact evidence for why it's okay to brag about yourself, because people need to see it. They're not constantly watching you. Vice versa, if they see you on your phone, or like, obviously, you know, if you're in a scenario where you're in a remote work environment, maybe they don't see that. But in an in-person environment, if they see you on your phone, or they say you're not doing the work itself, they might create a negative perception about you because what they see is what they perceive, not necessarily being the reality of the situation. And so we need to create opportunities that what our leaders see of us is what they end up perceiving, and that obviously being a good thing. And the second big thing I love that you brought up was how, as opposed to saying, hey, I want a promotion, or hey, I want this promotion, can I have it? The answer is going to be no. But if you instead come and create a plan with your leader or your skip level leader, or both, ideally, we can say, hey, my ultimate goal is to work towards these types of outcomes over the next 6, 12, 18 months. I don't actually know how I'm going to go about getting there. And I was wondering if I could work with you to help me create a plan or a path or some concepts as to how I could go about getting there in this timeline. Does that sound okay with you? Would that be okay with
you? That is perfect. What you just said is absolutely perfect. And sorry, I interrupted you. The one thing that I would add to that as well is that I encourage people to build a sort of board of directors for their career development. And for me, that board of directors includes my immediate leader and their leader as well, a few other leaders that are in their horizontal, people within the company and outside of the company. And I also encourage people to take that development plan that they craft and get their input, the input of their leader, to also take it to the other members of their career development board of directors to get their input and their support as well.
Yeah, no, I love it. That's great. Let's talk about the actual transition from individual contributor manager, because I think that is one of the most difficult transitions that really there's no solution to. We've not really found a great solution to making this happen. What often happens in the workplace is you were great as an individual contributor. Maybe you were in sales, you were a great salesperson. Maybe you were in tech, you were a great software engineer. Maybe you were in HR, you were a great HR generalist. And then all of a sudden, your boss says, you know what, we're going to promote you to manager. We're going to promote you to sales manager. We're going to promote you to engineering manager, we're going to promote you to HR manager, whatever it may be. The skill set that made you great as an individual contributor does not make you great as a manager. In fact, I would argue they're not even related, sometimes even scenarios where they're counterintuitive, especially in sales, because you've got sales managers, they're now responsible for the safety and the goals and the growth of the team, not their own commission check at the end of the month. And so what do you find to be effective for especially new leaders making that transition so they don't fall into the trap of I'm a big fan of Kim Scott's radical candor. Oftentimes new leaders struggle with the ruinous empathy or manipulative insincerity. And by ruinous empathy, I just mean they, for the sake of not wanting to have any hard conversations, they put all this on their plate. And so they're constantly overworked, stressed out, and just hating being a manager because they don't know how to tell anybody that they need to improve their performance. On the flip side, you've got manipulative insincerity, which is just, trying to manipulate people to do the work they need to do so it serves you, but it's not particularly clear how it serves them or the business. The other category that some people can struggle with is just obnoxious aggression, which is just people coming in and just like a bull in a china shop, just yelling and screaming and kicking and, just saying, we need to get this done. We need to have it done now. That often doesn't really happen with a lot of new managers. I see that happening with a lot of experienced managers who are coming into a situation where their board might have, given them a quick 1-2 and said, we need to improve our performance. And then they're lashing out. But the point I'm making is how can we go about avoiding some of those early mistakes that new managers often fall into?
And I agree with you that that must be one of the most difficult transitions. And it was difficult for me as well. When in my transition from individual contributor to manager, I moved from a senior analyst in which I was a team lead, but not directly responsible for everyone else's results and not necessarily responsible for coaching, mentoring, and developing and talent development, right? To then a role as a people leader, my first role as a manager in which I could not be 100% responsible for every single detail, but ultimately I was, right? So it's such a big transition. I think one thing that I think is very helpful is to remember that there are 4 components to management, 4 key functions to management, and one is planning. So planning that might require, include strategic planning, right? There's organizing. How should my team be organized to be the most effective and happy, right? And then there's leading, and that is the people leadership part, the coaching and mentoring and developing part, right? And those are really important. And there's controlling. And I think this is where it can get really hairy. Controlling is not necessarily about controlling people. It is about controlling the business that the team is responsible for, being able to monitor, to use data to see how things are going, to make changes as needed or whatever it is, right? So when I say controlling, I don't mean controlling people. I mean controlling for the business components that the team is responsible for. And I think sometimes as a new manager, one might have a lot of expertise, right? And might over-index and leaning into that expertise and plan everything alone, or decide that they know exactly how things need to be organized, or they know exactly how to control things, and might neglect the leadership part. They might neglect the part of working with people, the part of understanding behavior, understanding motivations, understanding what makes a happy workplace where people are productive and happy and are able to deliver as they're expected to. So I think it's really important to understand those 4 functions of management. Another thing that I think is really important is to think about, there are 3, these are very, very basic, but there are 3 skills that are needed for effective leadership, you could say, right? At a very basic level. The skills are the social skills, relationship skills, right? Then there's also strategy, strategic thinking, developing a vision, a mission that everyone can support and be engaged by. And there's also the technical skills. And I think that when a manager first moves from an individual contributor to being a manager, they might lean more on their technical skills, and that's okay because that might be their first management position. However, when moving into middle management, it is really important to keep a balance of the 3. And when moving into executive management, it's really important to focus more on the strategic skills, and maybe the technical skills are less important. But it's important to understand, what does this role require of me? What does my team require of me? What does the organization require of me? And as a result, use those three skills, the social, relational, strategic, and technical, as levers to pull to get the right performance out of myself as a leader, and then to be effective in leading my team.
I love that. Let me take a time to ask the students a question real quick. If you could post in the comment section, share a time, story, or scenario where you had someone be a great manager to either you, or you saw someone be a great manager to other people. What did they do that made them great? Post in the comment section. I'd love to learn about it. So on the flip side of being a great leader, tell me a story about a time that you made a mistake as a leader.
Oh my gosh. I can tell you many. I'm grateful for all of those experiences. So one in particular was a tough time in the organization. There was a pending merger, and there was a lot of pressure to have everything in order and look really, really good. And this is in my first couple of years as a manager. And instead of taking a people-centric approach and trusting my team and with the responsibilities, and to deliver and to ask questions and to experiment and to do all the creative things that they were capable of doing, I reacted by being more hands-on than I needed to be, essentially by over managing the team. And that mistake was terrible, because instead of getting the creativity and the innovation and the ideas and the execution that was needed to deliver the results that we needed to be in a good position, what happened instead was that people shrunk a little bit, and they would come to me for every decision with lots of questions, even though I knew they knew the right answers, which in result, people felt discouraged. They felt like they didn't have as much autonomy. And I was also overworked, because I felt like I needed to check in a lot and be even more connected to the details than I needed to be. So all around, it was a disaster. And I'm really grateful that even through that difficult time, that some of my teammates were comfortable enough with me to give me feedback. And it opened my eyes to the impact, to how I was behaving and the impact that I had. And I also checked with peers to get their thoughts as well, and was able to adjust my approach. But I can tell you from experience, not just from science, but also from experience, that over managing is a disaster. But I learned a lot from that.
That's a great. And I think it's easy to over or even micromanage when you feel a lot of pressure. Like, it's easy to be a great manager when everything's going great. When, it's roses and butterflies and rainbows. It's pretty easy to be a manager when you're like, we're giving out promotions and hiring new people, like as if it's hotcakes. Happy to do that. It's really easy to be a manager when you're in that scenario. It's really hard when your senior leadership says, hey, we need to reduce your team's headcounts by 2 people. You need to determine who are the 2 people you need to remove, because right now our business is not sustainable the way that it currently is formatted. And that is hard. Those are not easy conversations to have.
At all.
So no, I love to ask the students another question real quick. What is a mistake that you made in your own leadership development so far in your career? And by the way, I asked this question because I like acknowledging the mistakes that we've made. Like, we're not perfect. We all make mistakes. Maybe it was having an improper expectation that my manager would promote me without actually having a conversation about me wanting to get promoted in the first place. Or maybe it was, you took on a management position and, overmanaged or micromanaged in a scenario. Like, post in the comment section. I'd love to learn what was a mistake that you've made in your career in terms of your leadership development or your leadership when you've been leading a team. So, Flo, I'd love to ask you, what resources do you subscribe to help you stay on top of your A game as a leader?
So many. And so I'll give you some that are literal subscriptions, and some that are practices. Let me start with the practices. So I already talked a little bit about maintaining my board of directors, just people that I trust, that pour into my career development. And I intentionally seek people with skills that are complementary to mine, or personality traits that are complementary to mine, so that I'm getting perspectives from people that will challenge me. I don't want someone just to agree with, with all my whims. I need people to challenge me, and I appreciate that. So that's one practice. Another practice that I think is super
And by the way, students,
Mhm.
you can start that now, even if you're not in a leadership position. Like you can build your own personal board of directors beyond like right now before you even get into a leadership position. Like don't wait, get started now.
Absolutely. And then another practice that I have developed is, and I touched on this earlier, is that I didn't stop owning my development and career development when I achieved or reached a certain position or the next position or the next position. No, that is something that is ongoing. My career development, my personal development is independent of the organization, of the position that I happen to hold in that moment. So I constantly make sure that I understand my skills, what are my strengths, what are the areas I need to tighten up, and I document all of those things so that I always have goals, things that I'm aiming for in the next 3 or 6 months to continue to grow as a leader and frankly as a human being. Now, subscriptions. One of my favorites, and this is very literal, is I'm a huge fan of subscribing to the Harvard Business Review. I also enjoy reading journals. I enjoy reading all kinds of management and leadership and psychology journals because I want to hear what is the emerging science? What does it say? However, I think a subscription to the Harvard Business Review, which I think is like $10 a month or something like that, has a good distillation of the trends that are either emerging in science or even just out in practice. And there's so much information out there that we can read quickly, that we can share, that we can use as a mirror or also as a conversation topic, even with our own team. So I enjoy HBR. I absolutely recommend it. Um, Also, I do work with Ambition in Motion. That has given me another opportunity to connect with other leaders from different perspectives, different backgrounds, different organizations. Just to talk with one another, co-mentor, talk about the problems that we have in common and hear different perspectives that can improve decision making and also help me to continue as a leader. And then a third subscription that this is more for me because while I do work in product management, I'm very passionate about leadership and organizational development. I also subscribe to a talent development magazine, which has all kinds of resources specific to people and talent development. I think that oftentimes, as you touched on, Garrett, when the pressure is on, we tend to lean more on managing, on controlling and organizing and planning, right? And I need resources to remember to stay focused on people as well, to focus on development, to focus on skills, on building a very strong and healthy team culture, to help me remember to be mindful of the different perspectives and backgrounds that are in my team so that I'm constantly fostering a climate that is inclusive and encourages people to be happy and to do well. So I highly recommend those three. But when in doubt, if unsure, if maybe someone is making an investment in school right now and this is not necessarily the time to go make a financial investment in something else, at the very least connect with resources that will challenge you to continue to grow and learn and might make you feel uncomfortable but will challenge you to grow and learn.
I love that. Yeah, and Flo is part of our executive mastermind group. So if any of you all are leading a team and are interested in learning about our mastermind group, please feel free to reach out to us. I'd love to chat with you about our group. And I'd love to ask the students one more question real quick. If you could, what is, based on some of what Flo has shared with you all today, what is something that you'd like to start applying to your own abilities or repertoire or habits that you think could be helpful in developing your own leadership abilities? Post in the comment section. I'd love to learn. So Flo, this has been fantastic. This has been great. This has been very insightful in terms of how to go about developing oneself, how to go about transitioning into leadership. Is there any final tidbits, tips, suggestions that you've got for students or young professionals as they're entering into management roles or into their careers?
Absolutely. One, be self-aware. Understand who you are. Understand your needs as a person, and take care of those. Whether it is eating well and exercising and keeping your mind sharp, because it is important to be ready for all the different challenges that are people related that come with moving into a management position. So it's hard. It would be hard for a leader to pour into someone else what they don't have in themselves. So always take care of yourself. Keep your mind sharp. Keep your body healthy, and that goes a very long way. And the other thing is, if you don't have one, seek a mentor. Don't wait until you're in a management position. Seek a mentor now, someone who will challenge you, someone that you trust, and someone that has the skills that you want to develop or the roles and experience that you want to obtain, because it is absolutely priceless to have someone to learn from all the time.
Flo, this was fantastic. Thank you for being here, sharing this wisdom with our students. Students, thank you all for being here. I look forward to seeing you all at our next workshop. Have a great rest of your day. See you, everybody.